Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Entertainment Week Africa. Nice to have you and nice to have our lovely panelists. Okay, so first and foremost, let's give an overview of the panels. We're going to talk about the intricate balance between having a brand legacy and also personal fulfillment while also being profitable in the current society. Okay? So the first question I have is between the managing profitability and yet not losing your authenticity. Great. So could you start us off? The designer of Nitemi, many of you might be familiar with the brand.
Okay, so managing profitability and maintaining your brand DNA or brand identity. So the simple rule of thumb is make more money than you spend, but it's not always as easy as that. Where I like to start from is like to identify my non-negotiables. What are my non-negotiables when it comes to um, cost savings or profitability? And my non-negotiable is my brand identity, my brand ethos, the thing that makes my brand special. So I'm looking at detailing, I'm looking at fabric. When it comes to considering profitability, I don't compromise on the quality of the fabric, on the quality of our finishes, and the quality of production, right? Um, Further delving into that, managing profitability and protecting my brand identity, you also have to look at investing in local markets and local productivity, right? Because when you look at how we engage with the means of production and a lot of things are imported, we find that you spend a lot of money if you don't look inward. So that's how I manage my, my profitability. I look inwards, identify my non-negotiables, and that is my brand ethos.
I think for me, where it starts is like she was saying, is the brand identity. Once you're able to develop what your ethos is as a brand, the profitability it will decide where you are, how you want to handle profitability. You have to be able to give a reason as to why your brand exists. There are so many different brands out there, thousands of brands, and fashion doesn't need any more fashion brands. But you have to give us a reason as to why your brand should exist in the marketplace. Once you're able to decide that and figure out where you stand, from there you can now decide how you want to approach the market. And there are three different ways you can do that. You can do that from a direct-to-consumer standpoint, right? Where you go and sell directly to your consumer. So your pricing is going to be different. You can do it from a wholesale standpoint where you are focusing mostly on partnering up with retail partners or stores. And that's a different model system. You can actually do, the third one will be actually doing both of those together, where it's both DTC and also wholesale, right? But all those things are going to be different in terms of like your margin profit. So if you're going direct to consumer, the good thing is that you have all the margins, you keep the margins of your profits from the revenue. The challenge is that the amount of money that you're going to be using to capture the market is much more harder. You're going to have to spend much more money, and there's a lot of risk that you're taking into the inventory. Whereas with a wholesale partnership, there's a shared risk that you're taking with your partners and yourself. But your prices are going to be higher because you have to take into account the margins that you have to take, and then also your retail partners have to take, right? So you have to see it as a partnership. You are making money for yourself, then also you are making money for your partners as well. But so that's why it's always good to have. I think the best rule of thumb is to do the third option, which is direct to consumer and wholesale, so that you have a channel where you are directly talking to your market, right? Because your market for your retail, the market for your retail partners might be different from the market that you are directly talking to. So if you can talk directly to your market and get the margins, but at the same time have a successful wholesale pipeline, I think that's the best of both worlds. Now, to be able to do that, you need the capacity to do all of those things, right? Because it's not easy to be able to maintain the relationships that you have with those stores and then also be able to answer emails from every client and fulfilling all the products. So it all depends, but everything goes back to your brand identity of how you want to appear in the market, and how what your brand positioning is in the market, and how you go about with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, hello everyone. What a wonderful audience, and it's good to be with you here today. So, to answer your question, first of all, I personally am not a fashion designer, so I come from the tech space and I'm into venture capital. So, but given my experience as a fashion tech person, the idea of understanding where your market, your niche is the most important thing. So, based on my own personal experience, is when I had a digital fashion brand, and the idea was okay, we work with fashion designers. Okay, you're a fashion designer. I take your best, your masterpiece, and I convert it to a digital outfit. That's 3D animation. So you can exhibit it on, billboards. You can market it for as long as possible. That's a sustainability in our own way. And that was how we were making money because we were getting paid to do that kind of stuff. Going down the line, we thought, okay, maybe it's time for us to like build a product now and get more money. So we're deviating from our core aspect of making funding, and that was where the whole thing fell apart. So understanding your business model, understanding your structure, understanding your targeted audience, your niche to be specific. If you know what your niche is, you know who your audience are. So I would just say, just focus on that one. I mean, I'm not saying you should not expand. You can expand, of course, but expanding requires doing your research, know where you're heading to, and how much money it will actually take you to get there, and how much money you will make when you get there. Unlike to just, okay, I'm a fashion designer in Nigeria now. I want to expand across West Africa and then go to Africa. And I want to become the next big fashion brand. And I want to do this and I want to do that. Trying to chase that dream sometimes end up being a failure if you don't know where your niche audience is, right? So for me, I would say, okay, given my experience being a fashion designer or a fashion business owner or working with a fashion brand, you want to be in the position whereby you're like, okay, we are in a market whereby we have our own niche audience, and we want to just focus on what we are giving them and also what they are requiring from us, what we can deliver. Because sometimes your customers might be asking for maybe too much and you cannot deliver. So trying to appease your customers sometimes might also be a red flag for you. But it's all about the marketing. When you understand your marketing, you understand, okay, how to go about it, then hopefully, you could definitely hit the nail in the head, or what did you say? Something like that. Yep. Thank you.
I think I'm going to speak from the perspective of a small business because that's how I started, right? Um, and I understand that the way fashion businesses start in Nigeria, they usually start from passion. As a young person, you have a passion and you're creative, you want to put your hands to do something, right? So before you start like a fashion brand, I feel like you have to understand what your purpose is, who do you want to sell to, like who do you want to make clothes for? When you make clothes for this person, how do you want them to feel? And you also have to understand who your customer is. Like it's it's um it's such an in-depth knowledge that you should seek, and I know it's mostly always overlooked, but you have to do like an in-depth research into why you want to do what you want to do. And along the way, for you to maintain profitability with your business, right, it also requires some certain level of knowledge, right? What are your costings? Where are you going to be sourcing from? What's logistics like? Where are you getting your raw materials from? Your production? Do you want to hire maybe like tailors, or do you want to produce from a factory? Do you want to outsource your production? And when you do all of this, just basically know your processes, like step by step, know your processes to the core. What's your profit margin going to be like?
So you're not running a business whereby you source your fabrics, you've made the clothes, and then by the time you're putting your profits on it, it doesn't it's not even going to cover you, because at the end of the day you want your business to grow. And I see a lot of these things online where, like, you see a fashion business, and they are making clothes, and I don't want to mention the price, but it's like ridiculous. And I'm like, okay, do you have plans to grow? Are you going to eat? Are you going to, So these are the things that you should consider. Yes, we know we have a passion, we want to make stuff, but at the same time, we should also learn to try to build like sustainable businesses that can outlive us, businesses that can grow with you, because at the end of the day, that's really the point. So I feel like, build something with purpose, know your why, and then you should also have a vision as well. Thank you.
So everyone had very insightful answers, in terms of making sure your cost is always less than your more than less than your profit, as well as also building sustainable business models that can last a lifetime, that sort of thing. And that brings us to the next question, how do you navigate when there is a new global economic trend? Because the thing about having maybe a niche audience, like he said earlier on, is that sometimes your audience might change their behaviors. So how do you manage that when, if you're doing something sustainable, and in this moment sustainability is a bit of a buzzword for some people, and maybe tomorrow it's no longer something the audience are seeking for? How do you navigate that?
Okay, so you've said two things, so let me just try to unpack that. You've mentioned navigating economic shifts, and you've also mentioned changing consumer behavior. So for navigating economic shifts, I think that, especially being from this part of the world, being Nigerian, a lot of our economy is dictated by things that happen outside Nigeria, and is very predicated on currency fluctuations outside Nigeria. And we are a consuming nation, we're not really a productive nation. So, what that means is that the factors of production for myself, a baker, even people in service, I don't care whatever industry, it's determined by these currency fluctuations. How do we manage that? Um, on my end, what I do is, unfortunately, I have to hedge my products against a stable currency. What does that look like? It looks like sometimes hedging my prices against the dollar, seeing what the naira equivalent is, and then translating that to naira. The unfortunate aspect of that is that we might price out our local audience. That's the unfortunate aspect of when you have to, put your product against a stable currency. But if you want to be sustainable, if you want your business to last and grow, if you don't want to be hit by the changing economy, you sort of have to do that. Another thing that we do, or I do, is agility wins all the time. So as the economy is changing, you also have to be diversifying your model. Your supply chain has to be very robust. Instead of one supplier, you need to have about 10 suppliers, 20 suppliers, and you need to keep increasing that list so that you're able to move between different suppliers and say, okay, this person's price works for me today. This person's price doesn't work for me. These are some of the things that we do to just make sure that as the economy is changing, we are also keeping our head above water. Another thing that I think is not really looked into is the benefits of a local manufacturing industry. If your fabric is imported, your thread is imported, your machines are imported, you're always going to be chasing the dollar, which is the international trading index, right? But if we start to develop our local manufacturing industries, where if I want to get cotton, it's available in the north. If I want to get dye, it's available in the east. Then you'd see that we wouldn't be so susceptible to these economic fluctuations. Another thing that's important to do is also don't underestimate the benefits of geographical expansion. Don't rely on one market, because today the American market might be fantastic and the bulk of your customers are in America, but as you can see, globally there's a cost of living crisis. So if your markets or audiences are based in America and Europe, what's going to happen is you might start to see a decrease in your revenue. You have to be dynamic. You have to pursue markets in Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, the UAE, Middle East, and then just make sure that you're, very dynamic. And your second point was on changing consumer behavior. The customer is king. You have to listen to your customers. And what we're finding in listening to the customers is that their attitude is changing. Consumers are no longer just buying products. They're buying a feeling. They want to know you. They want to know the story behind your brand. A lot of people are becoming more alive to like sustainability and the impact of fashion on the world. And as the digital space increases, people are seeking community even more, like niche communities even more. So you have to listen to that, and you have to start to build your product around that by leveraging the tools you have around you. It's easier now to build an in-person community than it was 10 years ago. Why? Because of social media. You're able to find like-minded people, build a product for them, and then congregate around those people. So yes, that's how we've been able to manage those two factors.
You raised some good points in regards to both the economic and the shift within consumers. For the economic part, like you said, I feel like a lot of times we are collateral damage within the trade wars, the geopolitical trade wars. But one thing that I found out is that like the advantage that we have is that a lot of us have small brands and small companies are able to shift and pivot during these kind of economic hardships or these types of when things like tariffs are hitting everybody. It's very difficult for corporations to shift. But if you're a small brand, you can look at what's going on, you can shift, you can pivot. And so you're not beholden to freezing making decisions because shareholders are reliant on you making them a profit or bottom line. Usually your shareholders are the people that are working for you or working with you. And you can easily make decisions. You don't have to make for like hundreds of people to like make that decision for you. And it allows you to experiment, to change, to shift, and do things that you need to do in order to make a profit. In regards to the shifting taste of consumers, that's something that's going to constantly happen. And you cannot continue chasing those types of people. And this is the beauty of the internet and algorithms. If you know, in the internet, they have so many subcultures. We talk about like the underground subcultures. It's kind of dead in regards of like, there isn't anything that is too niche now. Every niche base has its own institution that they adhere to or they worship, right? And so as a brand, you have to look at yourself as a cult leader or a cult, right? And you are building this cult. And who in that cult is going to help to build your brand? If you think about most businesses, all you need is about, the rule is that 20% of your customer is going to be 80% of your revenue, right? If you have about 1,000 customers that are loyal to you and they are spending a significant amount of money on your brand, that's all you need. So you don't necessarily need to start changing what is happening. If you see like the algorithm, everyone is wearing like big pants and like what you've been doing and what you've been making money on is tailored pants. You don't necessarily need to chase them. Now, that is not to say that you don't look at what is happening and you don't shift when you need to shift. I'll give you an example. And this is one of the advantages of doing wholesale. When I would talk to my retail partners in wherever I was, in Japan, in the US, when we first started, we were more of a tailoring brand where we did ties, we did suits and whatnot. I noticed that a lot of our stores, each season, they started to buy less and less ties. And I realized that there was a shift happening within the men's fashion where it wasn't about dressing up anymore. It's more, there was this casualization that was happening. And so we had to kind of shift the way that we were presenting our clothing. There's still a tailored element to what we do, but it's much more casual. It's not as dressy as we used to, as our previous collections. And so what I did was I was looking at how our retail partners were responding, because they have a bigger, they are responding based on their market share, and they have a bigger market to actually see like I see what's going on. And so from there I'm able to kind of react and say like, okay, based on how they are responding, I can respond like this. But then I just shifted based on how I will respond within my brand, right? So that's basically it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna answer a question based on an investment point. Okay.
Okay.
So given our role as venture capitalists, we invest in businesses, right? So to your first question, like he mentioned something about being beholden to your shareholders,
Yes.
and that is where we step in because we get investment from angel investors, that is single investors, or much bigger what investment companies, and we give them to businesses. For example, we can't give money to a business that is not going to scale in our favor because in the end of the day we are trying to understand how we are going to make that money times 5 times 10. We get our return on investment, we pay our shareholders, and everyone ends up happy. But if we cannot understand where your business is heading, then it's either we don't invest in that kind of business, or we give you the kind of money we believe that okay, take this money, scale your business anyhow you want. Now, if it succeeds, good. If it fails, well, that is another Tuesday, because that's what happens. That's how investment goes. But so what do we do then? Then we focus on corporations because corporations they already have a business model. They fail, they succeed. They have a business model of making money, and we understand. Okay, one way or another, we are going to get our money, and we are going to take care of our shareholders. We're going to, take our own money, and so basically, we won't want to rely on the idea that okay, being a fashion brand, where you are heading might be in our favor or not, because that is not a game that we want to take at all, or we don't want to risk it in any shape or form. Now, giving your second question, we don't know who your niche audience is. We don't know who your market is, right? Because when you are approaching us to receive funding, you already gave us your pitch, and you made a presentation of who your market is and what regions you're focused on, and we took your word for that. So when we give you funding, it's not our job to understand what is happening with the next trend and who your audience are and whether they are complying with your products or your business or not. That is not our business. Our business is you make money and you pay us back. So the thing now comes down to okay, so what do? We work with there's something called accelerators and incubators. Accelerators and incubators, these are hubs that are highly tech equipped. They have highly tech highly tech savvy people. So these people, they bring in startups or businesses and they go through a training. It could be 4 months, 6 months, something like that. Sometimes it's a year, like a whole year. And what they do is they work with businesses. They provide you the tools in terms of marketing, online marketing. You don't know how to reach a certain audience via Meta, ads, or Google ads, or YouTube, and this. They would then work with you because they have a team specifically positioned for that. They work with you as a business. They discover all of that one. They give you the data analytics, and then you then implement policies or make decisions based on those research that you've gotten, right? So what we do is we work with hubs. So for example, say someone approaches me and someone's like, okay, we have this business, we have made this amount of money, we need funding, this is how much we need like 50,000 US dollars, and to help us reach this level. Okay, we believe you. We have seen your pitch. We've seen your your financial statements. It all makes sense. But what we want to do is we'll say, okay, we know a fashion accelerator program called XYZ. Would you join them this year to help you in these areas? And based on that, we will then understand whether we might give you more than $50,000. We could give you 70,000. We can give you 80,000, or we could give you less. Maybe your issue is not just funding; it's marketing. So in that case, we cannot just give you 50,000 US dollars. We can give you 25,000 because you need marketing right now. So okay, we will have someone work with you, and it's for free, by the way. These hubs, they work for free. It's a partnership. So you go through that process. You finish the program, and then we're like, okay, so given the research, given the analytics, given the data that we have, this is how much money we're going to give you. So go execute these things and get back to us. So basically, that's how we approach. And these things do exist. So for example, there's something called there's a company called the 360 Hub. For those of you who are in fashion, do you know 360 Hub? 360 Hub now just launched, was it a couple of months ago? This is what we call a fashion accelerator. They have machines that you can use to accelerate your production. If you are a fashion designer who doesn't have lights at your location, you don't have a good sewing machine, these are the hubs you want to work with. And trust me, partnership is key. Trying to do things on your own because you believe your creativity matters, well, it could matter, but sometimes your creativity might just sell short. So you want to cooperate with people or partner with people who actually can assist you accelerate. So you go about collaborating with people, you try to secure strategic partnerships that can help you in the long term. Thank you.
So as Temi has said about, edging your prices against the dollar, yes, I feel like, that can work, especially if you import most of your raw materials. It's just safer, but I feel like you said, then it kind of like makes your products like really expensive, even for like local consumers, right? So if you're sourcing your raw materials locally, you're producing locally, I feel like if you've done your financials very well, even if because we all know most of everything that we consume is imported, even if we're saying we're sourcing locally, right? Even if you go to the market, what you're buying from the market is imported, and at the end of the day, it still gets affected by the dollar at the end of the day, right? So when there's like fluctuations and then you go back to the market, the price is already different. But then if you've done your financials very well, what that means is that when there's like a change, you can adjust your pricings accordingly. So it's not like outrageous that then it now pushes your products away from like local consumers, because at the end of the day, I believe that you should be able to serve your community first, right? Even before you now start like you want to expand or you want to scale, at the end of the day you should be able to serve your people first. In terms of when we're talking about like trends, I think that if you have a very strong identity for your brand, you're not going to get faced by trends. Trends come and they go. That's one thing about trends. So if you want to build your business around, oh, okay, this is what is trending now, this is what I want to make now, you're going to, at the end of the day, look very, very, very confused. What you can do, even if you want to say, okay, yeah, this is trending, you want to, jump on it, I feel like there's a way that you can, I know this is where innovation comes in. I also feel like fashion businesses, we need to learn how to be innovative, right? When you're creating products, like who is going to use this product, I think you should create it like a product, right? And if you look at it from the angle of you solving a problem, I think it's going to go a long way, as opposed to just channeling all this energy in and then creating something that is not usable or is not, you're not creating it for anyone. So if you want to jump on a trend, you can find ways to be innovative about it, where you do not dilute your DNA, you don't dilute your identity, right? So that's one thing about trends. But I feel like you should just maintain like the core of your brand. You should not let trends scare you or let you lose your footing. Trends will come and go, but you need to, if you have a very, very strong identity, and when the trends go, like you still have your footing, you're very sure about what you're doing. So that's my take on trends. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So everyone said something very insightful, but I'm very interested in our little investor over there. So we've seen so many beautiful brands come to an end because they couldn't scale up or they couldn't find investors. So I really want to know, and I'm sure so many people here want to know, what makes a pitch really attractive to an investor?
To be honest with you, when people are putting together their pitch decks, they all have good intents. They all believe they are putting together a pitch deck that makes sense to them. So And this is something that people in startup understand. When I say startup, I mean tech startups. This is what this, given my experience in tech startup, if you have a pitch deck and you pitch 100 times, always understand that 95 of these pitches that you are pitching to different people will be a no and 5 will be yes. Okay, always. Never put it together a pitch deck and think, okay, this pitch deck is so savvy and so I'm going to get money that easy. No, you're not. And this is the reason why. So, for example, you are a Nigerian fashion brand. I'm going to just use the fashion. I'm not going to tech, just use the regular traditional stuff. Okay, so you are a fashion designer. You have these collections. You have made this kind of money during the years, and you want to secure 100,000 US dollars, for example, right? And you have your own numbers, which makes sense to you, given how you have been operating for the past several years. So you pitch to an investor, and he's like, have you ever exported or have you ever engaged with customers out of Nigeria? And you're like, no. And you're like, okay, so how do you know that if you expand beyond Nigeria, your business won't fail? How do you know that if you expand beyond Africa, your business won't fail? Right? So when you're putting together your pitch deck, you need to also include what happens if your business or your idea fails. That has to be in the pitch deck. If you are pitching promising investors heaven, well, there's going to be a problem. Going to be like, okay, I see what you are saying, but let me ask you one question. What if there's currency exchange or there's another COVID and businesses are falling like flies and your business is going to go under also? Now, how do you guarantee us that our money is going to get back to us? Because during COVID, so many businesses crashed, especially those in fashion. And those that succeeded were tech companies. And the reason why was because everyone was stuck at home, so you were just busy going through your phones and your PCs, and you're just scrolling right and left, and that was how they were making money. But for non-tech enabled companies, they suffered a lot. So you need to guarantee us plan B. What is the plan B? So based on that, again, we can decide how much money we're going to give you. Now, an investor might say, okay, I don't like your plan B. So with that being said, go, polish your pitch deck and get back to us years later, and they'll just jump to the next idea. You just have to try your best and, present your pitch deck properly. And another thing is, so most of the time, and this is for those who are operating as single founders or single, entrepreneurs. If you believe that, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm creative, I can do a lot of things. Sometimes you might be a creative person, but you might not be a business person. So don't conflict the two with, yes, you are savvy, your designs are amazing, but you're not business savvy. So what is the solution here? Try to work with someone that is business minded. It doesn't have to be someone that you'll be paying money. It doesn't have to be a consultant. Forget about all that one. It could be someone in your family, a friend who has successfully built her business and she's doing well. And you're like, okay, please, we are friends. I'm trying to do something. Just give me experience. And then they work with you, right? The reason why you need this is because trying to confuse creativity with business sometimes really goes absolutely wrong. And that's because you are focused on the design. You are pitching to an investor, you're like, well, the fabric, the colors, the aesthetics, the this, the that, and the investor's like, okay, and what about the money? And this is where you realize that, oh, I'm actually short in information when it comes to money, right? So putting a pitch deck together is one thing. Understanding the idea of the pitch deck, long term, short term, how much money you need now, how much money do you need later in the future? All that matters. And that is why when we are trying to invest in traditional businesses, mostly, we don't go about long-term investment. We will never do long-term investments. What we do is we say, okay, you know what happened? This is what's going to happen. We are going to give you grants. Now, grants will be small money. What you do with that small money matters, because if you can show another investor that, okay, this is how much money I get. I got 5 million naira, and this is what I was able to do with it. It tells an investor that you can do much better with 50 million, 100 million, and more, right? But if you take 5 million and all that 5 million is wasted on just marketing, well, then what about the money in supply chain and this and that? So here's where you are short, right? So again, sometimes working with people who can actually explain and help you understand the idea, the business side of things is very important. Without it, sorry, your creativity is amazing, you keep creating more designs, but there's no money, and no money takes you nowhere.
Okay, everyone, please. That was amazing, by the way. COVID, it feels like it was a decade ago, but it was only 5 years ago. And a lot of businesses crashed. A lot of people had to move into different sectors. So it's always great to think. I know we are Nigerians and we love to say, God forbid, but it's always great to have a plan B in mind. Now, this is for everyone else. You know, we are talking about how to build an iconic brand, and we also have to mention tech and social media, which is moving into the space, and it has really helped some businesses, but it hasn't done well for other businesses. How would you say a business should navigate the social space? Would you say it's a priority, something they should focus on, or maybe they should try building a community offline first?
Okay, so I'm going to look at your question from the lens of your digital footprint as opposed to just social media, because I think social media is one aspect of a whole, and I think the whole work in unison. So if you look at the proliferation of entrepreneurship, especially in Nigeria, you would see that it started to take off when social media actually came into the fore. And Nigeria, I think, is one of the foremost countries with Instagram businesses, Facebook businesses, Twitter businesses. And more, we discover that a lot of these apps are adapting and tweaking their platforms to include a business element. So WhatsApp has a business element, WhatsApp business, and you see they continue to tweak it to make it a fulfillment center. So you send your inquiry, and right there you're able to order whatever product or service, pay for it, get it fulfilled, get an order number, everything. Instagram also has adopted that sort of model, and you see them treating these platforms as marketplaces. So I think that answers the question. It wouldn't be ideal to not take advantage of these platforms, because there's a very low barrier entry to these platforms. If you wanted to operate a traditional website, well, AI has sort of like simplified that now. You could just put a simple prompt in your Grok or ChatGPT, and they'll tell you how to build a website. But it's still not as easy as exploiting WhatsApp, exploiting Facebook, the marketplace, exploiting Instagram. So definitely, I think we're already in that space, and I know that the people that are able to optimize these platforms are already cashing out. You have millionaires of YouTube, and you wonder, how is it working? And one of the things that I've been looking at that's really interesting is years ago, we had this thing called telemarketing. Without carbon dating myself, that I know about telemarketing. We had this thing called telemarketing, and people would basically sell to you on TV. And then when the internet came, that sort of phased out. But then we're now back in this video economy where people want real-time videos and interactions, and we're starting to see live shopping coming again. And it's going to be domiciled on these on-demand platforms, these social media platforms that already have the eyeballs. So definitely, anyone that's is in product manufacturing, fashion, whatever business, you should optimize these platforms for your commerce. So there is the panic, rightly so, that AI is slowly going to replace all of us. And I think the proponents of AI are telling us, oh, don't worry, it's not going to happen, it's going to help you. But when you start to interact with AI and you see all the things that it can do, especially in fashion, you're having conversations and you're seeing a lot of industries and revenue corners being decimated. It's as simple as your website images, your stock images for websites. I experimented with my team a little bit, and we're able to develop website images, ghost imagery, model imagery with AI. And the more particular we were with our prompt, the cleaner the images, the crisper the images. And people are doing this with videos as well. So very soon you might not need a videographer. You could prompt AI and you're able to come up with a fantastic video campaign. Same thing for your website. The particular prompt we have, not even with the prompts, with the softwares that are AI enabled, you have your cash books, you have your Zoho. They literally manage your businesses for you. So you're able to scale by managing a leaner operation. So with Zoho, you have an in-house accountant, you have a platform where you can schedule your posts. So definitely AI, social media, digital footprint, I think very important and very helpful for small entrepreneurs that are building brick by brick. Yeah.
Yes, so you made like some really good points in regards to the digital landscape. I also think that we should also look at like offline and how to build communities offline, because one of the things that the internet tries to trick us on is like you see people with a lot of following and you think that that following is actually translating into dollars or naira, whatever the case is, and it's not, right? And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that comes with the digital landscape. It's very important to build a community that will travel with you or go wherever you are, right? And so how do you do that? You have activations. Activations can look like pop-ups. They can look like events that you have. They can look like third spaces. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with what third spaces are. It's just basically a space where other people can come to engage in whatever you are doing, right? And so it's very important to have that like physical aspect of communication or community within your brand, so that you get to actually see who is actually buying and where they are, and build something that's actually real and tangible. Because again, with the digital space, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and you don't know what is going on. And then sometimes you think that like what you have this one campaign that you spend so much time and investment on, and you put it out there, and the people that should be seeing it are not actually seeing it because it's not on their feed or it's being bugged by the algorithm. So as much as it's important for us to embrace technology, there's still an importance to having something that is much more tactile and much more tangible for us to actually see and experience in real life as well.
So just, I realized when you spoke that I actually didn't, touch on the in-person community building. It's very important. It's very important. With my brand, we're a digital brand. We have an e-commerce brand, so we exist in the ether space. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And over time, I started to really become curious about who my customer is. Not because I didn't have an idea about them, because even if you live in the digital space, you still have to conceptualize that customer and build your customer profile so you know exactly who you're selling to. But then there is a membrane that digital space can't penetrate, and it happens in person. So when we started having physical events, when we started attending pop-ups, we're able to have that one-on-one engagement with the customer. And beyond even getting information about your customer, you get reinforcement for what you're doing right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you exist in the digital space, it can be very discouraging, trust me, because you do certain things, it works today, and then tomorrow, Meta, Mark and Co, they just do something and you're like, what's going on? What's really happening here? Yeah. And you're really struggling to navigate that. Today they say, buy this plugin, incorporate that plugin, and you're just incorporating and you're getting really lost. But then when you step back and you interact with your customers, your consumers, and they're giving you real-time feedback, you sort of are reinvigorated, reinforces what you're doing, and then it also reinforces what you shouldn't be doing, right? And I think it's very, very, very important to continue to explore those lines. So absolutely, community building is top tier. And I think it ranks closely with the digital space because as much as we like community building, the powers that be are trying to push us into the digital space more and more. So that is going to rank above everything else. So you need to be equipped, but also realize that the more we go digital, the more your consumer would look for a space to have real human interactions. So you need to curate those spaces intentionally. And then what that happens is that you build loyalists. I would rather have 10 brand loyalists than 50, I was going to say 100, but no, not 100, than 50 first-time purchasers, one-off purchasers give me 10 brand loyalists any day, because what they do is they bring business, they preach the gospel about your brand, and you can't really build that digitally. Some brands have been really good at doing that, but most brands, for example, Cortez, I don't know if you know Cortez.
Yeah, he's a good example.
He's a
Very
good example of a brand that has dominated that community, and you're looking and saying, what are they really selling here? What is really
Nothing.
going on? It's the community. He's tapped into that psyche of his people, and he can post today, everybody come outside in 10 minutes, and you
come.
see them running. I think 2 years ago, they flooded the streets of London because he told them to go and look for something. It's that power of community, so yes. But then he spread the message digitally, but then that resulted in like a community congregation. So balance both.
Yeah, mix of both. Yeah, for sure.
So I think you said all when it comes to social media, so I won't even go back to that one. This is where I step in. Investors nowadays, you understand, heavy investment goes towards tech-enabled startups. That's just the honest truth, right? The heavy investment goes to tech-enabled startups. So when you want to deploy investment, when you want to back a business, what we do as investors, we look what business is adopting technology the most. And the reason why we do that is because having a technology tool helps accelerate your business, helps you operate faster, and of course, discover how to generate revenue much more, right? And that is why for those of you who are following with investment going in Nigeria, they would rather invest in fintech and agri-tech and health tech and this tech. But when it comes to fashion, they'll be like, it's a traditional industry, right? It's not ready for heavy investment because they don't know how you are scaling your product. They don't understand, investors don't understand that one. We have to go about explaining to them what we are trying to do and how we are doing it and how it will, how it will convince them to invest heavy in certain industry. So we have fashion tech, for example, right? And people will say, what is fashion tech? Well, it's basically like a software engineer, someone who studied computer science can graduate as a computer science student and build a product that is going to help the fashion industry. It's that simple. But of course, you cannot do it on your own. What you need to do is you need to consult people within the industry, high end, low end, understand, okay, I'm trying to build a product. How does it help you? And everyone will give you their testimony. Oh, if you do this one, it will do this one. This is my experience. Based on that, we can then go together and just put together a product, build it, integrate it, create it as an MVP, that is a minimum viable product. You test it, see how it's doing in the market. The market will always give you your results. That's what the market's about. You want to build a tech product, just put it out there, let the market decide. Not an individual telling you, this idea is not market ready. That's none of their business. Sorry to say, get consultation, of course, but never rely on someone's, this idea might not do well. Well, how does he know? One example, not that I'm trying to be controversial, but OnlyFans, right? We all know what OnlyFans is about. When OnlyFans built their product and put it out there, they had a different idea entirely, and they started making money and that is because that was not they started making money from an idea that wasn't initially theirs. So when you build the tech products, you put it out there for the market to decide. Based on that, then you do some updating, and you engage the customer from there. So we as investors, we would like to, most of the time when we're trying to invest in any industry, we will always go after the tech-enabled ones. That's what we're about, because we can be able to track how your product is doing, we're able to track the performances, and then we know, how you are making money. Now, speaking of AI, when they ask, will AI take your job? Not AI. The person who is using AI will take your job. And this is something that we are heavily focused about. Because, for example, if I want to give you money and you have 10 employees, and I ask, okay, you have 10 employees, what are their roles? And you're like, this person is social media, this person is this. I will introduce a product that can do the job of 5 people. So I'll be like, okay, you know what? Can you let these 5 people exit and keep these 5 people? One person who is tech savvy will do the job of 5 people, and then that's it. You are cutting costs. Like it or not, you are trying to create job. I understand all that one, But in the long run, the reason why we have technology is because you can adopt it and make use of it, right? So AI helps you accelerate your work. It helps you modify your work. It helps you make things. I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to replace like the whole core value of your product. No, but it helps you scale. That's just the work of AI. Once upon a time, for those of you who are in fashion, you use your hand to do sketching, right? You do your hands to do sketching, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, you then convert it to pattern design. But now with AI, it's just a matter of putting in some prompts in command in words, and it generates a whole image for you. What is better than that? Let's leverage on it. Now, people do say we Africans should create our own products for the African market. I understand that one. But before we go there, why not use the existing products to actually use it in your favor? Right? So use it in your own favor, and it's at a certain point you will get to the position whereby like, okay, now it's time for me to now build our own version that helps the African markets. So that is something that we all need to figure out. And the last one is, I mean, that was the second question, which was like collaboration, which I mentioned earlier. Try to collaborate. If you are a fashion person, you don't know anything about tech, collaborate with someone that is tech savvy. If you want to collaborate with someone that is business savvy, collaborate with someone that is a consultant, that's someone that knows both business and tech together. That is how far you can go. Thank you.
So, I mean, you guys have said basically everything. While social media is great, I think I would also go from the angle of being digital, like Temi has said. So you can build interaction, get feedback through like physical contact with your customers. But I also feel like social media and being digital is actually a very great strategy. In fact, that's how I built my business. I built my business with social media, a website, But then having these things, like, do you even know what to do with them? And do you know how to? Now, the secret is, like, yes, when you go on social media, like, you can trend, you can do this, but do you know how to, like, convert? Do you know how to turn those interests into actual sales? And then when you turn them into actual sales, what do you then do? So I feel like it's really the process, right? And with this, if you really, really know what to do, you can turn like your customers into like loyalists of your brand. Like you said, you only need like 20%. You don't necessarily. I don't aim to serve everybody, right? I know the people that are important to my business, and I serve them like properly. So what do you do when you have a website? What do you do with your data? How do you track the behavior of people that visit your website, even people that buy from you? How do you get feedback? So there's a whole process behind. Social media is powerful. Being digital is very, very powerful. But then again, at the same time, like you said, like there needs to be a balance. So when you have like pop-ups, you have there's actually something great about connection. When you get to meet your customer, it's like that person over the phone, and then they're coming, oh, it was me, I was the one that bought that dress, I really love this dress. It's like you cannot beat it. You cannot really beat the feeling. So it's great. And then what that also does is you're able to get feedback on your products. You're able to get what you need to work on. Honestly, I feel like if you're able to focus on your customers very well, customers that love your products, what do they love about your products? And funny enough, what you're even developing can be ideas that come from your customers. Like, what are your customers saying? It's very easy for you to get carried away or get distracted with noise, right? And that's the thing with social media. There's a lot of noise on social media, right? But if you focus on listening to the right people, like your right customers, you can meet somebody and they're telling you, I really love your outfit, but I have a big stomach. What do you want me? That's somebody telling you to create a product for them, So I feel like, yes, if you find a way to balance the two, great. But social media and being digital is very, very powerful if you know how to use it properly.
Okay, so I'm gonna start asking the questions from there to this side because I feel like you two, you just answer everything, and by the time it gets there, it's like, well, you said it all. Okay, so you've answered questions concerning profit. You've given us ideas about how to do a pitch. But here's now the $1 million question. How do you know when to scale up the brand? Because scaling at the wrong time can actually separate you from your audience. It can also have a branding issue. So when is the right time to scale?
The right time to scale, I think that you should also listen to your business, right? You know, your business will speak to you, right? You need to know at what point what your business needs. If you operate it that way, right? And then if you know, like, let's say your business needs this and you know like the right path to go, then you know when it is time for you to scale. So the way small businesses operate is like, B2C, right? You go directly to consumers. But if your business is growing, you get to a point where, and let me put it this way. Let me talk from the angle of bespoke, right? Because I do bespoke, I do ready to wear as well. I started with bespoke, right? Now, if your product is great, like if you're providing value, that means that you're highly sought after, right? Now, it gets to a point where, for me, it got to a point where I could not undo my orders. It was extremely overwhelming. Now, so even now, right, I'm using ready to wear as a strategy to actually, take a break and remodel my business. Because right now I'm in the process of actually trying to scale my bespoke, and now we're having to change like our business model entirely. That is your business speaking to you, like, and scaling is like growing. So how can you, it gets, yes, it's cute. You're serving like one customer, this person comes today, this person comes tomorrow. By the end of the day, it's really not, you're not going to grow that way. Let's be honest. You're not going to, especially if you're somebody that really, really has like a goal, you have a vision for your brand. Then how do you scale? Like, how do you now turn around your business model into something that can serve like bigger audience? How do you develop products that people can easily buy? How do you cross sell? What other products can you, it's really huge. And I feel like fashion has so much potential. It's just maybe we're small minded, but fashion really has a huge potential, and if you know the right things to do, there are several things that that's why sometimes when I see like online and everybody wants to be a fashion designer, people just follow trends like, okay, this person is doing so well, I want to do this as well. There are huge opportunities in fashions that people are just overlooking just because you see that this person is doing so well that you want to go through that path as well. But there's like huge potentials in fashion, and yeah, we need to start exploring those opportunities. So that's what I was saying.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So what I'm going to say is, I believe every entrepreneur is smart enough to understand or to know when they're to scale. No one is dumb. No one just starts an idea and be like, all right, I just started an idea, it's time for me to go and raise money. No, everyone knows there's a process. Everyone knows there's a process. So everyone is smart from the very beginning. The strategy of how to scale is what matters. Now, the thing is, I mean, if you want to start a business, first of all, you are operating as a single individual, right? You need a sewing machine, you need this basic equipment. To get them will cost you, say, 500,000 naira, for example, right? How do you kind of get that kind of money? You don't know where to get that kind of money from. You cannot go and get a bank loan. So what do? You appeal to friends. We call it fund. What do you call it? Family fund, something like that. Family and friends, whereby like, okay, I have an uncle who is, who has that kind of money. So let me just appeal to my uncle. I need this kind of money to do this, and the uncle gives that kind of money, and with that you start sewing and start operating from there. From there, you understand. Okay, this is how much I have. This is how much I have succeeded. Can I now go and get a grant? Can I get a loan? Can I get this? Can I get that? It all depends on your consistency. I'll just put it that way. Now, another thing is there are a lot of programs whereby, like, okay, we have a program how we can invest in businesses. All you just need to do is apply for funding. This is another signal on how you can scale. You apply for what do you call it, for funding, and you get what do you call it, money from there. You scale your business to the next level, and you keep going like that. So I'll just put it that way.
I love what you said about like letting your business speak to you. Such a poetic way to describe like scaling, and it's really true. Like when you talk about like when you're in this venture, there are a lot of things that that will speak to you, and that's one of those things. Your business speaking to you. Another thing is like allowing the market allowing you or giving you permission to scale, right? So I'll give you an example. When I started, I was only making ties and pocket squares, right? And a lot of the stores that I was in, they liked them. But there were some other stores that were like, look, I like your prints, but we don't sell ties. However, if you made shirts, we'd buy. And so after hearing that from so many different stores, it's like, all right, let me test making shirts. And before I know it, I was like, okay, if I'm going to make shirts, I should make pants to go with the whole look. All right, I'm making shirt and pants. We must need to make a jacket. Where would the pocket square go? And before I knew it, I had a full collection. And from there, that season, I made a full collection. Our business tripled. And so the thing is that like you're always constantly listening. It's a lot of you. It's a lot of doing research. It's a lot of you listening to what your business is saying. Kind of your business is kind of like your body, right? You know, when they're talking about your health, people always tell you to like listen to your body. It's the same thing with your business, and it's also the same thing with the market forces. What is the market telling you or allowing you to do, or what is it saying that you can go, and how you can enter? What's the market opportunity too as well? So again, I really love that word. It's something that's resonating with me. I will think about it for quite some time.
I would love if you guys can give a round of applause to the panelists.